So today I'm outside here in front of the house waiting for DHL. Today's supposed to be their actual delivery day for my package I had to redo. Uh, today's 22nd, supposed to be around the 12 o'clock hour. I'm also waiting for mail because I got some stuff that, I ordered online throughout our pandemic, crisis that we're going through. And a lot of stuff that we order online, sadly, a good, very small percentage of it, doesn't come from the U.S. A lot of stuff comes from over across seas, especially China. So me, I'm waiting on, I believe, I think 6 rings, uh, 2 T-shirts, a figure, and then a jacket as well. So, we're playing the waiting game here. We're definitely out here playing the waiting game. So, one of the, topics for this video is, would John Marston still be alive if he would have left? If he never would have looked back? And I like doing these Red Dead topic videos. I know a lot of people like doing the common ones that are out there, but sometimes you gotta focus, on the stuff that's in between that plays into the big picture, plays into, the common, the stories out here. And I want to go back to the beginning because in RDR1, when back at Beecher's Hope with Abigail and Jack, and you get a letter by Bonnie McFarland about, the low stock on corn, and you got to go deliver the corn to her ranch. And, Abigail, she comes with John and, everything. And, after the mission, as you're making your way, back home, she's like, why don't we just, start over? Why don't we just leave? And John, he didn't want to. They got to keep, they got to work, to make sure they got money, for the winter time. And he doesn't have to worry making, payments on the property or payments on the house because we know he owns that land, he owns the house. He got all that stuff, practically, if not already, paid off for from RDR2 and the epilogue mission. And to go back to the beginning, right? Like, we know he disappeared for about a year or so when Jack was born. And if he never would have came back, would he still be alive? I'm going to say yes. And I'll get to why I say yes in a lot of these parts that, I do want to take my time on. And I hope I'm not loud. I hope you guys can hear me. I say that because, again, during the recording of this video, it sucks I can't get refills on my ear stuff, right? Until I see my actual doctor, but, it's still a bit silent. The stuff they gave me is supposed to be like 7 days or whatever, I can hear out of this one, but I'm trying to get the levels back, little by little. But, if we take a look at, I think it was chapter 2, he wasn't around camp all the time. I know he was scoping out the sheep thing. He could have left, there, and no one would even care because, a lot of people just don't really care for John, in the gang. They respect him, they can love him, but they just don't really care much for him like that. So, he could leave and no one would ever think a thing of it, except for Abigail. But I do believe, John, would have, got Abigail in the middle of the night along with Jack, and, they would have left. So, he could still be alive, during that time. Especially when you take a look at chapter 3, when they're over at Rogues, and you have Agent Milton that comes to the camp, right? it comes to the camp, and I'm going to get into why Agent Milton could find Dutch so easily. So Agent Milton, he asked John, "Who are you?" Because he doesn't know who John is apparently, and John gave him a bit of a smart remark. I'm Rip Van Winkle, and that goes to show John doesn't have a big target. John is not on nobody's radar. You know, he could easily and wanted to, just leave. Like he wouldn't be hunted at all. Now, there's that big question. What about Agent Ross? Agent Ross could have hunted John if Agent Milton was still alive. Agent Ross probably could have went behind, Agent Milton's orders or behind his back to hunt down each member of the gang, to hunt down each individual person, because he considered them, all a threat in their own right, if not all a threat in one bunch. And, I guess, when John kind of gave Milton that look like, they don't know who I am. I'm not on the radar. I have no money, no bounty on my head. He could have got, Abigail and Jack, again, that night and just left. Like, nobody would even care because, everyone would be, on guard right now and, paranoid and trying to, guard, areas because they're so spread it out. They wouldn't have even noticed that, them three would have left. They wouldn't have noticed. Even if you take a look at chapter 2, when Milton approaches Arthur, would it have been, would Arthur have the same role as John in RDR1 and would have got killed eventually like John did if Arthur would have agreed to give up Dutch? Yeah, that's without a doubt, because I believe eventually Ross would go behind, Milton's back, and he would have had Arthur hunt down the members of the gang and then would have killed, Arthur. But I believe Arthur would have John that same night, even if he took that deal, right? I believe he would have talked to John and said, "Look, man, I got to tell you something. I need you to get you and your wife and your kid out of here. I took a deal to bring down Dutch in order to save all of us. Now, I don't know how this could turn out, but I'm giving you a chance to escape. They don't know who you are." You take a look at that same time when that happened, right? When Milton approached Arthur. And I kind of want to throw this theory out there, so we're going to take a pause for a little bit with the main discussion. I have a theory that, Micah was always a undercover agent of the government of that time, working for him to bring down other gangs, other outlaws. Because I understand in the dialogue and Easter eggs it's painted as, Micah's father being the aggressive, the abusive one. But if that was the case, wouldn't he have his father's guns and not his mother's? I believe his mother, killed Micah and his brother's father, and that Micah's mother was the abusive one, and she did things to her sons and, drove them to that life of crime and, rode with her, and eventually, Micah's brother, eventually saw things for what they were and left. And I do believe maybe Micah's brother had something to do with the death of, Micah's mom, their mom, which causes that hate between the two brothers. And, even throughout all that abuse Micah went through, he still is going to love his mom, and that's why he holds those guns, close to him, because, those were her guns, those were hers. So I believe along the way, Micah, ended up becoming a crooked individual because it was embedded into him by his mother with how his character is. But I believe he became like an agent for them in order to one day hunt down and find his brother and kill, his brother because of his mother. Well, that may have never been the case, but I do believe that, he gang hopped for like 6 months at a time, bringing down other outlaws, other gang members, for the Pinkertons into the government. whatever was left, that was the reward that he reaped from them, until eventually they built him up enough to be in Dutch's crew. Now, if you take a look back at the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, there's an agent, right? Government agent, FBI agent, who took down a lot of mafia families within the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and went heavily undercover, right? And like he'd done it for so long, for so many years. There's plenty of movies about certain mafia families that he took down, the characters that he played, the people that he got close to take them down. And he retired like last year, and now I'm being able to show his face and to do interviews here and there. I'm trying to put out a couple of books, and you would think that people would recognize him. Well, guess what? You're not going to be too focused on recognizing him, because a lot of things are going to be so held in the identity that you're not even going to care who that person is, and a lot of their background sounds so legit that you're going to buy into it. So I do believe Micah was playing this part so well, doing everything so perfectly according to the Pinkertons with the government, with him being an agent, that they didn't put him out there, not like they did John. And I'll get to John in another video about that. But once Micah got to Dutch's gang, Micah collected and got close and wanted to talk to people and find out what he could about each an individual member. But because John was hardly never around, and he's like, well, you can ignore John, I really don't care much for him, so I doubt there's anything on him anyways. And that was Micah's problem, because John took Micah down in the end, and John became a problem, for Micah. So I do believe Micah was definitely an agent, because he just gang after gang taking them down for the government at that time. And I do believe when Micah was allegedly locked up over at Strawberry, that he gave the information to Ross and said, look, man, you can find their gang over at this place called Horseshoe Overlook. You may want to talk to Arthur before Dutch. So there's some hindsight right there that you may want to keep in mind as a theory, if not a solid theory at that, because there's a lot of stuff that just point out to that really being the case. So as we get even to I think around the same chapter, right, when we go trying to get Jack back through that mission, and with John being out and about, he could have escaped at any time, and again, he just wasn't on anybody's radar at all, even after the Braithwaite's destruction. No one even looked towards the Vanderlyn gang's way. I think they were grateful for that. If you even take a look during the time where John went to go collect the money from the sheep herd, right? Like take a look at the thing that happened during that. Him getting captured, getting a knife to his throat, I believe it was. Being in a shootout to escape, and then going back to collect the money from the sheep. No one looked towards John Way. No one paid attention towards John, like he was practically pretty much invisible, so to speak. So he could have escaped, again, right then and there, just got the money, and he could have went to go get Abigail and Jack. Stuff like that. And even during the Saint Denis bank heist, right, the Saint Denis bank robbery, he was captured, but as far as they're concerned, right, like in real life terms, it's been like this for so many decades, and even now till this day, like, if you have a group of people, or even one person, depending on how things go, that a crime's committed, and you give a description but you can't find the person that you're looking for, or like the group of people you're looking for, you're gonna pick out somebody around that area who was close to that area when the crime was going down, even though they may have never had a part in doing the crime because they were actually an innocent bystander. Cops, law enforcement, they're not going to care. They want to grab somebody and just say, look, we know you didn't do it, but we need somebody to arrest to take the fall until we figure this out. But look, we're going to grant you a good deal because we're trying to move up. And I truly believe, because John wasn't on their radar, they probably thought, man, he's just a civilian here in Saint Denis. We need somebody to bring down and to arrest for all this. So let's grab him. Let's take him to prison. And while John was doing his time, I guarantee you, you have to go to trial, wait for a hearing to figure out what your sentence is going to be. They say, oh man, there's talk of hanging him. Man, they ain't gonna hang him. If anything, he's gonna be sitting in there for a good while. But even that right there goes to show, wait a second, they think I'm an innocent standard? You know how well I can defend myself in my case if I try? I could be let go, but then they probably will kill me anyways. Now, after his escape, during his escape, right, they thought it was just a regular break heist. They didn't know he was part of the Dutch Vanderling gang at all. And with John riding around to that area, when we get to the bridge, no one even bothered to question him, look for him. He was on nobody's radar. I do truly believe if he were to talk to Arthur about that part after they blew up the bridge, like, look, man, I'm planning on actually leaving tonight with Abigail and Jack. He's like, it's obviously I'm not on these people's radar. They're not looking towards my way. I want to get out before it's too late. And because Arthur, being Dutch's right-hand man and second in command, right, he would have gave John his blessing to leave the same way like he had given Saliad, okay, I need your help getting certain people out this group right now. Because by doing that, you already got the automatic blessing of Arthur for Mary Beth, Trelawney, Uncle, Tilly Jackson to escape, to lead the game. Because by then it was already too far gone anyways. So John will still be alive. Even if you take a look at the Blackwater heist, John, I do believe, I don't know if John was involved with that, but he was on nobody's radar. Not after that, he just wasn't on no one's radar. So right there, yes, he could have left that behind. He still would have been alive. But he looked back, and Arthur told him, don't look back. The reason why I think John, yet again, why Agent Ross and the government, the agents looked towards John Way, because John killed a government agent who was Micah on the mountain. Because if he never would have, because let's backtrack, right? Let me pause, I'm finna go inside. Because if you take a look, before that, right, in several bounty hunts before leading up to Micah, Sadie said, look, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. She gave him the chance, like, look, you made a few bucks, but you don't have to do this now that you got your family back. You don't have to do this. And he could have made the choice right then and there not to. He could have made that decision not to. He could have said no. And if he would have said no, he would still be alive, which yet again goes to show, they weren't looking his way. They were not at all, looking his way. As far as they're concerned, like, he didn't even exist. But because he chose to go, he left that trail like, oh, okay, we now know who you are, which I believe Ross had a case and files on everybody in the gang, like everyone. Even John's. So that goes to show, would John still would have been alive anyways? That's a bit tricky because, again, Ross could have went behind Milton's back if Arthur never would have killed Milton. But I like to think, because of how this plays out, of how I'm talking about it, there is that possibility, chance, John could have lived. Now, let's take everything that played out, right? And go into part 1, which is actually considered part 2. John probably had a hard time. He couldn't escape if he wanted, though. Why he was still in the U.S. I believe, they always had eyes on him, had ears on him, regardless. When he was in Mexico, he could have had that chance right then and there to just stay, because it's obviously the U.S. didn't really want nothing to do with crossing into Mexico. But let's go back to what I was saying. With Abigail saying to John on their way home, look, you can leave, you can start over. She was right. What if they come back for you? What if they choose? And she's like, what if they're not done with you? And she was right. They weren't done with John. Abigail and John could have left that night, like leave everything behind, just hop in that wagon and go. I don't think they're going to be out watching them at night like that. I do believe they had people, around the farm, after everything. They could have left. Now, there's 2 places that they could have went. And again, John could still be alive, They could have went to Canada. Like, they could have took the snowy mountains that we seen in part 2 at the beginning. They could have geared up, get certain things together. If they say, okay, we're going to go to Canada where Charles is at, right? Okay. They would be willing to take that travel. Agent Ross and his people with that military, they ain't going to take that travel. They're like, man, that's too much work, too much travel. We're not going to take that. We're not going to do it. Right? But at the same time, they probably would have known anyways, where did he go? If not that, they could have went down to Mexico, right? Yes, that might be obvious, but because John helped a lot of those people out there, and let's say Ross and the army had the balls to cross it and try to find them, a lot of the military there and the people of Mexico would have fought and protected John and his family till the last man, in order to make sure him and his family had peace. So yes, there are chances, I do believe, John could have took to still be alive. Like, I believe that. Another way John could have still be alive is this, right? Is this, with what I'm about to share. When he was in the barn, I made sure John had the handgun that holds 15 shots and the shotgun that holds 22 shots, right? I had full ammo, which is about every gun I had, lots of dynamite, right? I would have climbed up the ladder on the top here, because the military, they're so busy focused on that barn door they're not bothering looking up. Ross was in the middle, right? If I was John, I would have lit a stick of dynamite, threw it down there. It would have took out a good proportion of the people right there. The rest would have been confused and scattered, right? Because they're not going to get their stuff straightened right away. Like, they just got shook by the gravitational blow. There's dust. You have screams. I would have took, to play safe, I would have took the shotgun with the 22 shots. I would have went right into Deadeye, marked who I wanted with their heads. Boom, 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 right? Like, that would have been it. Like, that's all you really see left. Because there ain't that many soldiers left or many, law enforcement right there left when it comes to, the agency part of that. At the end of that. So John, if he would have did that, he would have took them out. I would have went to Ross and put some extra bullets in him for safe measure. By then, I would have left. The safest bet probably would have had to have been Canada more than anything. Because there's a good majority chance, those military people and the government people with the agency, they would be, the president, the governor, would have been expecting their report. They would have been expecting the report, and once they figured, man, we ain't got the report, they would have sent people to go scope it out. Once they seen everyone dead, including Ross, like, oh shit, where'd he go? They'll never know. Because it would have been, he would have gotten away with it, he would have been free. And around that time, it would be very hard to really capture somebody because you didn't have the proper detective skills to track or to trace people at back then without spies and all that mess, right? Because we would have been a couple more years until we hit like the 1920s, because my grandfather in reality was born in 1923. So around the time he was born and around the time Jack was in his 20s, right, it was already in the 1920s. So the days of the Western days were only for 30 years in actual reality. So that's it. They would have been home free. So to me, that is a way that John definitely would have been able to still be alive by the examples that I give, in this video, for him to still live. Just like, I think the next video as well, how could Arthur still be alive, Because if I recall, I do believe, there were chances right there, but, he remained loyal. And I remember I did a video on my ChEDDErTarY 931 channel and also on the Jazzy Entertainment channel talking about, would you still remain loyal? What I talk about goes into the fact of, end quote, snitching, right? Or you being the main head person, breadwinner, and if you found out your homies around you, the people that you're feeding and trying to take care of and look out for, people that you expect to have your back, if you found out, they were turning on you, trying to kill you, use you for your money, would you still remain loyal to people like that? So I kind of want to put Arthur in that situation within the next video like that, talking about, would he still remain loyal? Would he still, find a way to survive? Would he have lived? I strongly believe so. Because there's, again, if you go back and play the game and think about it, there were several times, like, he could have just said, fuck it, man. This shit's crazy. Like, just dip. Just dip. Because who else is, if you look at the next person underneath Arthur, it's going to be Jose. To be Dutch's right-hand man. So with that being said, I'm out. Peace.